The Yankees have had some bad news in spring training. So have the Orioles, but that might be getting a little bit better. We'll break that down. We'll break down the mixed labor draft from last week, and we'll talk about 7 revelations Fred Zinkie made from doing his own projections. All coming up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. We are brought to you by FanTrax, and we're brought to you by the NFBC, the RotoWire Online Championship. Of course, it's named after us. Of course, we support the NFBC and the Online Championship there. Fred, we got a lot going on. Bad news in Atlanta. We'll start off there. Sean Murphy out 4 to 6 weeks with a rib injury, and no Travis d'Arnaud to back him up anymore.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, here we go with the Braves lineup, right? After all those injuries last year. Now they're already dealing with injuries this year. So right now, roster resource lists Drake Baldwin and Chadwick Tromp as the catching duo. We'll see if the Braves reach out and try to pick up a veteran catcher to cover those first few weeks of the year. I downgraded Sean Murphy today. I already updated him on Fantasy Pros. Let's see. Give me 10 seconds. I can tell you where I put him. Did you already change him in your rankings?
I did. I changed the projection for him.
Yeah, same thing. So I did that and then followed it. So I have him down at catcher 21 now. Maybe that's harsh. No, I don't think so. Catcher 21. What do you think?
I have Sean Murphy. I think I already had him kind of low to begin with.
Okay. I was a little okay with him. Okay.
Yeah, I have him below his old teammate d'Arnaud, actually. And even though I think O'Hoppe is going to play not just behind the plate, they'll find ways for d'Arnaud to play. I have him behind Connor Wong and Danny Jansen.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, Jansen should be playing every day in Tampa now. I think that's going to be something there that he benefits from. Endy Rodriguez, I would take before him now. It's a little tight because the thing is, he had the oblique thing last year, and it wrecked his season. He came back way later than expected and was way worse than expected when he came back. So I'm going to take the pessimistic point of view with Sean Murphy.
Yeah. So you have him down to the point of being like replacement level in a 2-catcher league. Like the guys you're naming, Danny Jansen, right? Like those guys are like pretty much like right around replacement level in a 2-catcher league.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty much. I have him a little bit higher than that. I guess I have a little more optimism. I would be a little more he's a tough one in an NFBC. Like, man, to have to tie up a roster spot for 3 or 4 weeks in the regular, like maybe for 3 weeks or something, let's just say in the regular season for him. We know how many April injuries there are. We know how many exciting April free agents there often are.
Yeah.
That would be hard. Like to hold a catcher too on the bench at the beginning, I would be really reluctant to draft him.
That's kind of the point. It's like
if I had IL slots though, like in labor, I would be obviously more into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Like labor, he's still draftable. Because you get that IL spot then, but the thing is, then you're rostering 3 catchers in your draft. I'd rather spend that extra draft pick on a pitcher. I'd take another dart throw on a pitcher. I especially because I waited on my second catcher anyhow in that league. I don't always wait on the second catcher, by the way. I thought it seemed right in that league. Once looking at catchers. Okay. So once Tyler Stevenson, Austin Wells, Jonah Heim, even, after that, there's not much separating these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So why go early? And if I get too early, why go reach for Gabriel Moreno when he's not much different than Joey Bart and not that much different than Jonah Heim? That's my approach.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I can really see, I'm just picturing it all play out. Like you said, like taking Sean Murphy means that in the last round, you have to take like a Jacob Stallings or something just to get you through, which also means you have to hold a roster spot on those guys. Like I'm just picturing, like, say in our labor draft with a couple rounds left, I took Quinn Mathews, just hoping that maybe I could hold him for a month and see if he's up and in the Cardinals rotation. Like taking Sean Murphy takes that guy out of your equation.
Yeah.
I may rather just I may rather just take a different catcher too, and not take 3 catchers and have that roster spot available. And I may not even be able to hold Quinn Mathews. Like, and that league has IL slots. I was kind of playing that with IL slots in that league. I could hold him, maybe for a few weeks, but in a league without IL slots, like no way. I'd rather roster prospective closer, SP6 on a good team or something. So yeah, you got me a little more pessimistic now. That's okay.
Jeff Biddle,
it's definitely format dependent. I'll say that with him.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And then you start looking for alternatives. Like, Uncle Ted mentions Ben Rice. He's didn't work as a first baseman for the Yankees last year. Won't play first base now they have Goldschmidt. Well, maybe he gets more playing time, but I see. I'm a believer in Austin Wells. That's why I have a hard time buying into Ben Rice. But then again, Stanton out. Maybe Rice is the guy that's going to play. Maybe so. Maybe I'm downplaying him a little too much. So we'll see about that there. Anyways, enough about Sean Murphy. We spent enough time about Sean Murphy. He screwed me over.
We spent several minutes on a guy who we immediately said don't draft.
Yeah. Okay. Luis Hill came down with the shoulder problem on Friday. Brett, Aaron Boone. I almost said Brett. Geez. He said that he's preparing for them to miss some time. And it makes sense. You get shut down in spring training before you even fully ramped up. It's more than just like the 2 weeks. It's, even if he gets shut down only for 2 weeks, then there's the ramp up time after that.
So latest on Luis Hill is, this came out just like within the last hour. He's got a high grade lat strain. That's not good.
No,
definitely. If you're talking lat strains, you don't want a high grade in his pitching shoulder, obviously, and that's going to prevent him from throwing for 6 weeks. So 6 weeks, no throwing. So let's say mid-April throwing. Let's give him another month, mid-May return. So we're talking about a mid-May return. Knowing that, I don't know if I want to.
Talking early June. I would err on the side of caution even there and say June.
Here comes pessimistic Jeff again. He already got me on Sean Murphy. Now
I'm
he's
a hater.
moving into Luis Hill.
I'm such a hater. I'm moving him down to 18 starts. I had him at 23 and it didn't reduce him enough.
So great strikeout rate, obviously, but we're talking about someone whose ERA estimators last year were around 4. Walks a ton of batters. If you had to hold, would you hold Luis Hill for 6 to 8 weeks of the regular season in an NFBC? I'd say I'm back to where I was with Sean Murphy. I would totally love to draft him in Tout Wars or Labor for my bench and then just flow him into an IL slot. In an NFBC, I don't think so. I don't think I'm drafting him.
No. Are you drafting Marcus Stroman now that he's pretty much assured a spot in the rotation?
No.
I
don't think I want any.
I'm just messing with you. I know you want.
I think we're Marcus Stroman. No, for real though, I would use Marcus Stroman as like a pitch and ditch spot starter throughout the season. If Marcus Stroman had a 2-start week or had a, at the Tigers in April, cold weather, park, whatever, I'm totally in for that. I would not want to have Marcus Stroman on my roster permanently unless we're not. I was going to say unless we're going to see something different from him. We're not going to see something different from him at this point in his career.
So I love the fantasy 411 reference, the pitcher ditch, because you used to do fantasy 411.
I do still have some old MLB.com sayings in my head from all my years there, and I ran the 411 for a while after Corey and Mike were done. So I still have those lines in my head.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Any interest in Will Warren if he happens to win a job, or any interest in Cookie Carrasco?
No to Cookie Carrasco.
Yeah.
Will Warren? No, I don't think so. There's just so many exciting pitchers right now. I think at this time of year that I think no.
All right.
Only thing I would say is as we get closer to the season, guys like Will Warren, they are pitching on one of the best teams in baseball. Maybe I would at least, if rotation spots locked up and we know when he's making his first start, I at least maybe look at the schedule. This is for like those late March, right before opening day drafts. Like you could, like I have got value at a guy before where you're like, oh, I'm going to use him during the first full week of the season. Again, he's got like an at Detroit or a 2-start week or something, and I'll just use him and then drop him. But yeah, no, generally no.
All right. Giancarlo Stanton, quickly, even in a 15-teamer, are you even thinking about drafting him?
No chance. No chance.
Nope.
There's just not enough value there. Like no batting average, no steals, no runs. Yeah, no position exactly, and I'm often getting utility only guys. Like I think maybe on every draft I've done so far, which I think is 3. It's not like 20, but I think I've drafted a UT only guy. So like a good one. So I think the no runs is kind of like the final nail for me with, or the last straw or whatever with Stanton. Like batting average bad, batting average bad, steals non-existent, but he's also so slow that like he's gonna score like 40 runs this year, maybe less, depending on how the injuries go. So no.
All right, there you have it. No, says Fred.
No.
Orioles, Gunnar Henderson. TGFBI just ended up with him again. I had the 7th pick for the 4th draft in a row, Fred. It wasn't my first choice this time. And kind of got I set my cue because one person was kind of stalling out. I think if I was doing it live, I might have taken Corbin Carroll ahead of Gunnar Henderson just to do something a little different. But no, I still have I still have Gunnar Henderson ranked ahead of him. So I think the way I'm looking at it there, I'm okay with it. The good news on him is he turned a corner the other day with this side injury. Not doing baseball activities yet, but I don't think he's going to be stopped from being ready for the opening day.
I haven't moved Gunnar Henderson at all, and I don't plan on it. And I'm in a draft right now where I picked ninth. And if Gunnar Henderson had been there, I would have taken him. He wasn't. I took Kyle Tucker, but if Gunnar Henderson was there, like I've still got him 5th in my rankings, and for now I'm not moving him.
All right, so I feel better already. Yeah. I actually felt good about it. I felt fine about it anyhow. But any downgrade on Jordan Westburg with his back?
Again, not yet. I haven't seen anything yet to make me downgrade him. Like backs are tricky, so I guess I'll be keeping an eye on it. So Jordan Westburg is someone who I really like, and so do you. But I'm getting the vibe during draft season that we all like him, because I'm not getting him in any drafts. So I think there are so many guys, and Jordan Westburg's one of them, who I could have got in so many drafts in January. Like in January, I had him way higher than his ADP. His ADP's become earlier, and now I can't get him.
You're a visionary. You saw the future.
I can name, if I wanted to, I could go through my rankings and name a lot of these guys who I don't like doing January drafts, but this year, after it was all said and done, like there's so many guys who you were just talking yesterday with Scott about Jeff Hoffman, whose ADP has risen. Yep. Like I could have got him back when he first signed with the Blue Jays, and I had him where he is now, and he was going way later. And that's tip of the iceberg. There's a bunch of them. So anyways,
you're driving that price though.
I'm not, because
you're a market mover. You did it in labor yourself.
I am, and I am writing articles telling people to draft these guys, but I don't think I'm a market mover at all. But anyways, next year, maybe I will do a couple like NFBC 50s or something right at the start of February, before the market really starts to correct itself.
All right. Very good. Lastly, Felix Bautista pitched an inning today. Ahead of my mindset of where I thought he was going to make his debut, I'm encouraged. He's throwing about 96, 97. Now, pre-injury was 99, but he also had a quote saying, "I'll get to 99 by opening day." It was his first outing. I'm encouraged. I bumped him up a couple of saves already.
But I believe that the Orioles said that that they're going to be careful with him.
Yeah, they are.
So I was like, today for me was kind of a mixed bag. Like he's like, I already had him ranked pretty favorably. In fact, part of me wishes that I took him last Tuesday night. That was one of my at least partial regrets. But I'd already taken Hoffman, and I could have taken Bautista. I'm pretty sure I could have taken Bautista the next round. And I think maybe I wish I did, but either way, it's like he pitched well, and I was like, oh, okay, move him up. And then I read the quotes, and then I was like, no, maybe I'll leave him where I have him at like 30 saves.
Yeah,
like 30. If they're talking about managing him, 30 feels fair. Like the Orioles are good, but they're not the Dodgers. Like I think 30 saves feels fair for him. 55 innings. That's where I've got him right now.
Yeah. Okay. That seems fair to me.
That makes him for me 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I think closer 11. Yeah.
Rudy Gamble took him at the 9-10 turn. Yeah. That price is going to go up.
Round 9. Yeah.
In round 9 is team draft. He got him at pick 135.
Yeah.
And you got Hoffman in round 7. Wow, Fred. You are moving markets there.
Yeah, so I wish I had taken, so then I took Jason Dominguez in round 8, and then I should have taken Bautista in round 9. I took JT Realmuto. I got excited about locking up my catchers, but I should have locked up my saves Oh,
Yeah,
well.
I'd agree with that. I'm
We'll
down
see.
on
Maybe
Realmuto.
Batista
Yeah.
will pitch for a month and something will happen with his arm again. And I'll be
Yeah.
glad I didn't have him. Like, that's the thing is, like, we aren't totally out of the woods when teams are talking about managing a guy.
Yeah.
I still think my 30 saves might be a little generous and having him closer
It's
11.
possible. I think the
But
Orioles are going to have a lot of save chances, and I think he'll pick all the second half saves. So I
that's
think they're going to be fine.
the thing is how long does the taking care of him last? Does it last for the first half? Does it last for a month? Does it last for the whole year? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see indeed.
Yeah.
All right. The Milwaukee Brewers signed Jose Quintana to a 1-year deal. I think it's like around $4 to $5 million is the estimate there. You DM me saying this is the most Brewers signing ever, or the most Brewers thing ever to take Jose Quintana on March 3rd.
Yeah, I didn't see the size of the contract, but yeah, I'm assuming it wasn't very much, and like he was probably looking to get into a camp and keep his career going. So yeah, Jose Quintana is just like I'm not drafting him. He's 36. Looks like here it's $4 to $5 million. So like really cheap for a starting pitcher. The Brewers will probably find a way to guide this guy to like a 4.1 ERA or something like that. He'll give them valuable innings. He will not be exciting for fantasy because the strikeout rate is so bad. But for a team like the Brewers that's already ahead of the division and is trying to stay ahead of the division, just locking him in, the DL Hall, probably part of it. He's got a lat strain.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
So that's part of it. Brandon Woodruff's working his way back. Like the Brewers, I don't know. This is how the Brewers win. Like Aaron Savali, not exciting. Quintana, not exciting. But you put them, but they lead innings.
Yep.
And the Brewers typically find a way to have a really good bullpen.
Yep. They'll do the 5 1/3 of 2 runs allowed, and that'll be fine.
Yep. Exactly.
With 3 strikeouts or something like that. But it'll work.
Not drafting him. He's in the Marcus Quintana be in the Marcus Stroman class for me. Like if I saw him on waivers and there was a week where he had a favorable matchup, then or a 2-start week with matchups are okay, then I'll add him. But that's it.
Yep. Means he's not re-signing with the Mets. Mets have a need with injuries to Manaya, Montas, and maybe Kodai Senga being a little behind pace there. That means that Tyler McGill, Griffin Canning, Paul Blackburn, you guys are doing all right. Brandon Sproat might make the team. Jose Urena signed. That one's interesting because Ronald Acuña's brother, Luis Angel Acuña, is on the team, and Urena and Acuña don't mix. So that one I found was a little interesting as a deal there, like kind of agate type deal there. But anyways, we don't need to spend any time on that. One we will briefly, we normally wouldn't spend any time on Javier Assad either. He is going to IL, but you're more concerned with the implication of this.
Well, I still don't think we're there yet, but it does get Ben Brown, who's an interesting sleeper, one step closer to starting. So Javier Assad already wasn't draftable. I think Colin Ray's now in the rotation, again, following the Brewers playbook. This is an easy move for the Cubs. Colin Ray, again, like you said, 5 innings, 2 runs, maybe sometimes 5 innings, 3 runs, turn it over to the bullpen, 5 1/3, like you said. Colin Ray's not fantasy worthy because the strikeout rate's really low. ERA is going to probably be in the 4s, but it just is a depth move. So I could still see Ben Brown not getting in the rotation, but he's really close. Like if Colin Ray who's almost 35, just looks in spring training like he just does not have it at all, then maybe Ben Brown gets in the rotation. Matthew Boyd's in the rotation. He's pretty injury prone. Jameson Tyone is another guy who's had some injuries, who's in there. So I think now Ben Brown's one spot away. If I had to guess, Brown opens the season in AAA, not in the bullpen, so that he's stretched out, and then he's in the rotation. He's another guy like Quinn Mathews, who I mentioned, who I wouldn't mind trying to hold for a month.
Agreed. It's just you can only hold 1 or 2 of those guys.
Exactly.
That's the real problem. That's the problem with Sproat. If he doesn't make the team out of spring training, a lot of these pitchers, same with even that's why it's harder to commit an earlier pick on Kristian Campbell or Roman Anthony, because you don't know when they're going to make the team either, for that matter. But the payoff's higher, obviously, too. And so there it's worth it. But it's tough to find a spot there. Brett Beatty, even same thing. I mean, I know some chatter in the chat room on this one here today on Beatty. He's having a good spring so far, but where's he going to play? That's the tricky part for him. And we've also seen it before with Beatty, where he's torn up the minors or torn up spring training and then gotten torn up by big league pitchers. So
it might just be 1 year too late for him. He done this last year when the Mets were pivoting. like, and trying to reassess the roster. Like, it was right there. He didn't do it last year. Vientos did do it last year. Now the Mets are more loaded, and the spots just aren't as readily available.
Agreed. And I think Vientos he may not be a made man, but he's vetted. He's a major leaguer.
Yeah, I think the message to Beatty, even if he has a good spring, if the team's healthy, is just, okay, great job. Go to AAA, wait for an injury.
Pretty much. I mean, maybe there's a DH way to make this work or some sort of way there, but it's tight all of a sudden there. So, but that's good. Organizations have that problem. They build redundancies. They build depth. You need it over the course of a season.
For sure.
Over the course of the season, you need a commissioner service too. So FanTrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, FanTrax makes it easy. FanTrax can import any of your current leagues and customize if needed. We're running my only home league draft tonight. It's a keeper league on FanTrax. So excited about that. FanTrax offers the most in-depth player pool in the industry, including minor league players. Do you need a customizable commissioner service for your fantasy league? FanTrax offers more customization than any other platform. Waivers, categories, scoring system, schedule. FanTrax offers custom solutions for all that and more, and it's all free. Sign up for free today and be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., still on the Blue Jays. Simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's FANTRAX.com/RotoWire. FanTrax, the home of fantasy sports. All right, Fred, aside from my gratuitous swing at you there with still on the Blue Jays, but you're going to make these tough questions for me on labor a little bit tougher now. But you know what? It's okay. I can handle it. I'm a big boy there. Let's jump right in. You wanted to ask me about my, and I'm going to put up the draft board for people that are watching the live stream here. You guys can take a look at the draft board as well. So we can do that because it was fun doing the live stream last week there for that. So what did you want to ask me about my team and its greatness?
So your team's great. But it's my job here to find some holes in this incredible roster. So my first question is, so your SP3 is Ronel Blanco. Are you comfortable with that? Now you have a nice SP1 too with Garrett Crochet and Blake Snell. And I think I sarcastically mentioned in the notes like that those guys never get hurt. Your SP3, all pitchers get hurt. I kind of was being a bit sarcastic.
I picked up on that.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I didn't want to be like, oh, I know these guys are getting hurt, but my guys aren't. But your SP3 was a round 16 pick. It was Ronel Blanco, who went undrafted. He was such an afterthought that last year he went undrafted in the Tout draft and hold 50-round draft. But he did have a good season after age 30. So you either really like Ronel Blanco, or you're going crazy stars and scrubs, which again can work. What do you think? Are you comfortable? So you went like you got the 2 and you got 2 closers. So there's 4 pitching spots. Then you went Blanco. Then you went Walker Buehler, who's had a nice spring start, but is pretty risky right now. Then you went David Festa, who doesn't have a rotation spot, but might. Merrill Kelly hurt last year. Kyle Harrison, I think, battling for a rotation spot. Yeah, you picked up some white bread at the end with just Jamison Tyone, just kind of boring Wonder Bread type guy.
You gotta have somebody that's guaranteed.
Dustin May doesn't have a rotation spot. Luis Garcia is going on the IL to start the season. So, anyways,
and keep in mind we have IL spots in labor, so that was kind of a design sort of thing a little bit. So here's the thing. I took starters. I took pitchers in rounds 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
And then again, a second closer, as you alluded to, in Tanner Scott. Hopefully a closer.
He'll be a closer.
There. But the idea was, and kind of it informed my draft strategy. Is also informed by the notion that last year I was down on hitting across the board. So I wanted to get those early teens, the late single rounds on hitters, and then catch up in volume. Did I get enough? We'll see. It might not be enough starting pitchers, but I only have 1 bench spot spent on a hitter. And it's the very last pick in Davison De Los Santos. I have 5 pitchers on my bench as well. So as much as is Blanco a SP3? Probably not. I was 1 pick away from getting Nick Lodolo in round 12. I would have taken a pitcher then. It was a string of 4 pitchers right before me. You were part of that. Went Christopher Sanchez, Nick Pivetta, Seth Lugo, Nick Lodolo. any one of those guys I'd probably take. But then again, if I didn't, I don't get Colton Cowser, who I love. So, and then again, like, okay, there goes Kikuchi, there goes Pepio before my next pick. I'm not pushing the next guy up. I kept on getting into that mindset. Shane Baz went one pick before me in round 14. So twice there in the even number of rounds, I got sniped immediately by Ray Flowers, by a pitcher I really liked. So that, but you know, at some point, maybe you have to push the next guy up and take that sort of chance, but not pushing it up, you know, saved me from Luis Heel, I guess. At least there's that. Yeah. And I got to the point where I just had to take a bunch of pitchers. But then again, if one of them fizzles, even though he's my third, it doesn't really matter because I'm not drafting him as SP3. I have a bunch of SP4s and 5s. And then hopefully I make up for it in volume or upside. You know, one of these guys clicks and then he becomes an SP3 type. You're right. There's a lot of risk embraced here, but I think I make up for the risk factor by volume.
Yeah. Are you high on Ronel Blanco? Do you think you're like one of the higher people around on him, or was it just like it was round 16? He was the next guy on your list.
The latter.
You don't think he's someone you're going to have on a lot of teams?
No, it's the first time I've drafted him.
Okay.
I wish I could have done it over because Clay Holmes went at 17-2 when I took Blanco in the 16th, and I like Clay Holmes a lot. That is a guy I will roster a bunch.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like Jesus Luzardo too. He went before you picked again, like after Blanco, but before Walker Buehler. I like Jesus Luzardo. I think he's interesting this year. He seems to be healthy and had a really good 2023 season. But yeah, anyways. Okay. There's my first hard hitting question.
Yes. Thank you.
I think answered appropriately. You're still standing.
Dodging him.
Let's see. My next hard hitting question for you. Do you have enough steals? So I feel like
this is a every draft sort of
half of your lineup. I felt like at first glance, half of your lineup is going to get 5 steals or less. So do you have enough steals? So you've got Henderson, let's say 20. Jarren Duran, what are we saying there? 30?
Yep. Rally about 5, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Matt McLean's pretty pivotal.
Yeah. Matt McLean is important for you. Yeah, for sure. Because
Colton Cowser is pretty pivotal for me.
What are you thinking for Matt McLean? Like 25?
Yeah. And I'm thinking.
And Luis Garcia can get 15 or 20.
Yep.
So Colton Cowser can get you 10.
With an upside for more.
Yeah, you think so? More than 10?
They talked about already in spring training wanting to get him to run more. So I'll take that at face value.
And then you went on a run through the middle rounds of no steals guys. Michael Toglia, Josh Jung, George Springer can get a few.
So can Toglia. Tolia can too.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Tolia. And then Matt Wallner probably.
He had 10 steals last year. Michael Tolia did.
Okay, there you go. So maybe I'm not giving him quite enough credit. So we could dub this team Sneaky Steal.
No, I'll rapidly concede that I'm a little light in speed.
I'm okay. So I'm actually okay with that, like being light in speed. I wondered if that was a plan.
It was
more than power, like more than being light in power.
Like I think it's like a trade-off. Like I'm more willing to go with I want to make sure I get the power of the good hitters more. I also felt like my targets were harder to hit in this draft on everything. Like guys that I was getting in other leagues, I didn't get here.
Maybe you should have drafted at the beginning of February more too. Maybe maybe you've been pushing them up.
Touche.
You and I both made a concerted effort, I think, to get some sluggers. Like I took Kyle Schwarber, then you took Cal Raleigh. Like I said, you took some guys like Michael Toglia, Josh Young, George Springer, Matt Wallner. I like your Matt Wallner pick. I mentioned that in our notes. I think that's good. He could hit leadoff. I think will hit leadoff against righties. Great at getting on base.
Yep.
I grabbed Isaac Paredes. And just some other guys who don't get a lot of value through steals, Brandon Nimmo, Alec Burleson, like not guys who hit are massive power hitters, but that's where their value is. Michael Busch, Nolan Gorman, I took, yikes, but that's late, but he certainly gets all of his value pretty much through power. So I think you and I both had the same thought that we did not want to be chasing home runs on the waiver wire.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. So let me ask my first hard-hitting question of you, Fred. Okay. You took 4 hitters, Phillies hitters, in the initial 11 rounds. Is that a problem?
So I had no idea that I did that until someone pointed out to me on Twitter. So I took Trea Turner in round 2, Kyle Schwarber in round 5, JT Realmuto in round 8, and Alec Bohm in round 11. To me, it's not a problem. I don't think like this isn't fantasy football. Baseball, like there's so many numbers coming in every night. The Phillies are a pretty good team. Like I wouldn't even care though if I had 4 hitters off a losing team. Like if I had 4 hitters off the Marlins, like I wouldn't care. Well, as long as they were drafted appropriately. If I had 4 Marlins, they'd be later round picks. I just don't think it's really relevant in fantasy baseball.
Yeah, I get it. I think it's, and I'll go one step farther. I think that loading up on a good offense is a great thing.
Sure.
Yes, if you ran a Braves plan last year, it didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ran it in 2023, it worked out handsomely. So I think you load up on hitters on good teams. Also, the Reds counter plan also failed miserably last year. You got Ellie, who is great, but all the other Reds hitters, save maybe Steer, were a big disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, like loading up on one team is more of a thing in fantasy football, where it could be really good in a big contest, but then it could also kill you, right? Like if that team doesn't work out. But I think in fantasy baseball, I think it's mostly irrelevant.
Yeah. You know what? I agree. PJ asks, and poor Paul Sporer taking strays, and he's not even here to defend himself. Ask Sporer how that worked with the Cardinals last year. Paul took a bunch of Cardinals in the later draft last year, and it did not work out so well. But you know what? Hey, that's life.
It's an all or nothing approach, and I can respect it. Like we're not trying to finish 6th. I think it's fine. But that wasn't my plan with the Phillies. Like it just was kind of random.
Yep. All right. Another hard hitting question for you, Fred. You only have one closer. You don't even have like a possible closer there. Are you comfortable living in the fab world? What are you going to be doing with saves? Are you going to be trading away Hoffman and just punting it all together? Or are you going to be like a fab master and nail the 3 guys that come off?
I don't like it. I don't like just having one closer. I've punted saves many times before, often with success. I guess I am probably in on, I don't know, the trader Fred side of me is like looking at who went in the subsequent picks and is just like, does Ryan Bloomfield need a closer? Maybe I could just grab Brian Reynolds and get out of this saves thing altogether. Like he doesn't, just for the record, but it's trying to find someone who has one closer. It would maybe give me their round 7, 8, 9 hitter to get Jeff Hoffman. I could easily go down that route. I think I'm going to try to do this right. I'm going to try to fab guys at the beginning of the season. So one thing I didn't do, I didn't draft other relievers unless Ben Brown ends up in the bullpen. Like I did draft Robert Garcia in the last round, but that's just a dart throw at an unsettled closer job. I will probably pick up a reliever or 2 on the first fab run to get them in my lineup because I don't want to be rolling 8 starters. So I'll probably get a reliever on the first fab run or 2. And then I will start looking at maybe guys in unsettled bullpens. And I guess I'll play this game for a few weeks and see what I can do. And if I can't, then bye-bye Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, there's not an overall contest. So it's not disqualifying to not finish well in saves if you're doing well elsewhere. But also, more saves do become available in season. Last year seemed aberrant in the lack of turnover, but usually there's turnover. It's just the question. The problem is league specific here is that we have $100 fab budget, not $1,000 fab budget. So it's less granular. And if you pick up a player, he has to be active in your lineup that given week too. So if you want to get ahead, jump the gun and fab a guy for $1, there are no $0 bids in this league either. That's the other thing.
That's a big one.
Yeah. So you've got, so you've got a cap on your moves. And that's usually you're okay, but I know some people do run out of fab pretty quickly in this league. And you can't trade fab. You can trade for a closer or trade away a closer, but there are some real limitations here. So, but the thing is, there is some turnover at the trade deadline, sometimes earlier. Just how far behind are you? How many points can you make up in the standings? That's the tricky part there.
Yes, exactly. That's what I don't want to end up. I don't want to end up with Jeff Hoffman getting me 33 saves, and those 33 saves make me finish like out of 15 teams, like 12th.
Right.
In saves.
And keeping in mind too, that you spent a 7th round pick on that.
That's
player.
right. So
That's
I'd rather
the real
just,
problem.
if he's healthy and producing in a month or a month into the season, 6 weeks in the season, and I haven't been able to figure anything else out at closer, then I think I'd rather just move him for some other guy. Doesn't have to be a 7th round pick, a 9th round pick, a 10th round pick, whatever. And I'll just, instead of finishing 12th, I'll just finish last. That's what I don't want to get 35 saves, 33 saves, whatever from Hoffman and finish like 12th. I want to figure out another closer and at least finish middle of the pack, or just get out on him. Like I said, trade him for someone's 9th or 10th round pick and then just finish last.
Dave Funnel jumps in looking at your roster, says loves the late pick on Kris Bubic. Big breakout coming. I tend to agree. You know, he wasn't starting last year when he came back, but he was pitching very well, and he's kind of, you know, now he's like the favorite to win a job in the rotation. I like that one. I like that one quite a bit.
I did decide at the end of this draft to really resist the urge to just draft, like, as you would say, cromulent, you know,
yes,
bench pitchers, kind of guys who I just feel like have very little upside. Like Chris Bassett went in the last round. And like, I really tried to resist the urge to draft those guys. And I took Ben Brown, Quinn Mathews, and Bubic in rounds 25, 27, 28. Those are all like more upside plays, in my opinion. So I decided, especially early in spring training, I just decided to do that. I'm really trying to avoid I am prone to taking too many boring players. And if you go back and look at the middle rounds of my draft, you can find a bunch of them. Brandon Nimmo and Alec Burleson and, you know, Ian Happ and Alec Bohm. Like, that's a lot of vanilla there, but I tried not to do it in the late rounds. Like, let's get into some dart throws on some guys who could be really good.
Yep. Agreed. I took a stab on Dustin May, even though he's not guaranteed a job. Luis Garcia is starting the year on IL but he could be good late. And that's the whole thing. You try to, and you and I both believe in volume. I think that's one of the big takeaways there. You have Nolan Gorman, crazy. You have him in both labor and the tout draft and hold. Tell me more.
I don't know. He just comes out. So the Cardinals have said they want him to play, and he just comes out, like, if he's playing, he comes out really high in my projections. Like, because he can, like, Nolan Gorman can kind of hit 25 home runs in his sleep. Like, if he's playing, he's going to strike out a lot. He's not off to a good start this spring. It could be a terrible pick. It's in the round 25 range in both drafts. But I think he might be my middle infielder actually in both leagues right now. But like last year, he was awful, and he still hit 19 home runs, and he stole 6 bases. You know, the year before when he was pretty good, he hit 27 and stole 7. Like, this is someone who, if he can get that strikeout rate down, it doesn't have to be that low, just like 32%, something like that. Like, he can be a 25 to 30 homer, 5 to 10 steal guy. And there's that's really hard to find in the late rounds. But man, I don't necessarily believe in him. But the Cardinals, and he's also, I'll throw one more thing on him. He's only 24, like turns 25 in a couple months. But like, he's only 24. He's already had a great season, like a full-time season with an 805 OPS, and a terrible season the following year. So like, this guy has lived, but he's only 24, almost 25. I don't know. I feel like in round 25 or so, he's worth the risk. Maybe I'm crazy. I kind of don't really want him in my lineup in week 1. I guess I'd have to look up the matchups, like if they were playing a bunch of righties or something. But yeah, what do you like? Do you have any interest in drafting this guy?
I haven't yet. I have a kind of general distrust of the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Maybe it's distaste even. Sorry, Cardinals fans, best fans in baseball. But I don't like what they've done with their young hitters. I hate what they did to Jordan Walker. I feel like they kind of mismanaged Gorman a little bit there too. And so I haven't been finding myself taking Cardinals at all this year. Maybe some Wilson Contreras. I like that he's getting the extra playing time. So I found that his prices I found to be pretty right. I think I see the logic in going after Jordan Walker at cost. I think there's still potential breakout there. I don't know if the Cardinals are the team to draw it out of them, but Mason Wynn is interesting. I haven't been going after Gorman though, because I just don't trust the Cardinals not to mess around with them.
Yeah, and right now he's slotted looks like he's gonna hit lower in the lineup. Like I said, like I probably should downgrade him a bit more, just on the likelihood that he just doesn't turn it around and leaves. But again, okay, so he's kind of like the hitter version of Ben Brown, of Kris Bubic, right? Like that's who he kind of is. Like, maybe he gets off to a good start, and he could definitely hit 30 home runs this year.
Yep.
Like the year he hit 27, that was in 406 at bats. So, and that was as, like I said, like as like a 23-year-old. So like he can definitely hit 30 home runs this year and steal 5 or 10 bases. So I guess he's the hitter version of we talk more about boomer bust pitchers. Maybe he makes sense as a late round boomer bust hitter. And then if it doesn't work out, like I can just I can put him on my bench for a couple of weeks. If it's just strikeout after strikeout, then I just drop him and pick up some boring hitter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Last one about this draft. I want to ask you about Jason Dominguez a little bit there. You're not a rookie drafter yet. You ended up with Dominguez, and I think he grades out highly for you. Obviously, he did because you took him before plus 150. You took him in the 9th round.
Yeah. And as you said, and I mentioned this on the podcast, like it's unusual for me to ever have a rookie at the top of my queue. That's just not really my thing. If you go over and look at his FanGraphs page, like the projection systems, like a lot of the projections have him at like 20 homers and like 25 steals, or some of them have him at like 20, 25, some of them more like high teens homers, low 20 steals. Either way, that's pretty good. And on a Yankees team that's in search of a leadoff hitter, and I know they've thrown his name around a little bit as someone who could hit leadoff for them. He's not off to a great start this spring. That doesn't go well with Yankees fans because they're impatient. But when you start throwing into your projection system like a 2025 guy, 80 runs scored, like he gets up pretty high in your rankings pretty fast.
Yeah, he does. So and we're going to talk about the effect of changing a projection and where, it changes your playing time is such a big aspect of projections and how they turn into valuation there. So it's always interesting there. We're going to do that. But first, quick note from our friends over at the NFBC. The NFBC RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Championship is live. You can play baseball, and trust me, I do this a lot. Play fantasy baseball against your favorite RotoWire experts, not against my favorite RotoWire experts, but I play on the NFBC a lot. On NFBC this baseball season, go against myself, James Anderson, Clay Link, Scott Genstad, and more. And they will all compete in the RotoWire NFBC Online Championship for a shot at $150,000. Sign up for a draft today at rotowire.com/high stakes. That's rotowire.com/high stakes. And again, I've done one, beat Jeff Erickson. I'll do another one. Eric Halderman's done one. Clay Link's done one. Ryan Roof is going to do one. We're doing a bunch of them there for you. We love the NFBC. So guys, check it out. rotowire.com/high stakes. Fred, you did an article I thought was really interesting, and I wanted to bring that up next here. It's got if you are a friend of the RotoWire football podcast, it's got an Alan Seslowsky-esque title to it there. Eye-opening surprises from 7 fantasy baseball projections. But point is, like, you do your own projections, and that leads to some revelations on, what it kind of helps shape some of your drafting philosophies.
Yeah, for sure. And in the article, I talked about some specific players because I just felt like that's kind of what they wanted for the article. But I thought on here we could talk about maybe some big picture takeaways, because you also do like projections, and you and I've talked over the years that you use SGPs and I use SGPs. So, SGPs comes from, is one of the ways that some people value fantasy baseball players. And yeah, so I thought maybe we could mention here kind of, some of the takeaways that I find every year when I'm making projections. And the first one I want to mention is it's remarkable how much adding or removing a few innings moves a pitcher in the rankings. Like if you just add 10 innings to a pitcher, 15 innings to a pitcher, it's not the innings, it's the 15 strikeouts that go along with the 15 innings. It's the one extra win that maybe you give them, maybe even 2 wins, but let's just say 1. That moves a pitcher so much. And same thing, like you talk about these guys like Luis Gil that all of a sudden lose like 40 innings in your rankings, like they just absolutely plummet. Because the innings matter so much in the SGPs, I find it's hard to get guys who like the Ben Browns, like the Quinn Mathews. DJ Hers is someone I mentioned in our notes. David Festa, someone who you drafted. If they don't have a rotation spot, so I can only project them for 125, 130 innings, which still feels a little rich, but trying to be optimistic that they'll get in a rotation spot fairly quickly. It's hard for them to get too high up the rankings. So I do find when I'm drafting, if I have a cluster of pitchers, I often like to look actually at which ones from the cluster have the fewest innings. in my projections, because those are the ones that have the ability to climb up the rankings really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that I've struggled with over the years. Like, because for that reason, like a Chris Bassett, a Miles Michaelis pops up higher in my projections, my valuations, because the innings matter. It's the multiplier effect. Cromulent innings beat no innings, right? And that's at least in terms of like a formula. In terms of how you draft, that's not always true, and that's like a hole in my game. I'm really trying to correct that.
You're right. So I liked your Jameson Tyone pick. Like in labor, like he actually pitched quite well last year.
Yeah.
I had a similar pick in Tout Wars. I resisted taking Eric Fetty for so long. Like he was the highest ranked pitcher on my list for like, I don't even know how many rounds.
You don't even know how that's happened to me so many times this year too. Fetty and Chris Bassett are the two.
So like Fetty actually had really nice ratios in his comeback last year. So I ended up I finally took him in round 22. I'm totally fine with taking one Tyone or one Fetty around that point in the draft, but I don't want to get too many of these guys because you're just locking your pitching staff into being mediocre. So yeah, that was like I say, like Fetty's kind of like, but like I said, I have Fetty at decent innings. The guys like Michaelis, I'm fully out on. If I see a guy way down near replacement level in my rankings, and then I have him projected for like 160 innings, like forget it. Like there's absolutely no upside there. So I'd rather take the guy who I have in the similar range, but 120 innings. You can't have too many of those guys either, because you need guys actually in your lineup at the start of the year. Like if they don't have, like we said, you can only have draft so many David Festas, especially later in spring training once the rotations start to shake out. But yeah, it's something I've definitely noticed is in SGPs, the mediocre guys, they can rise up just through volume, but we don't want to get too carried away on that. And even at the top end, like Blake Snell, if I have Blake Snell, who you took, ranked the same as someone else, but I have someone else with like 30 more innings, I might just rather take Blake Snell and hope that maybe he gets my 150 innings projection.
That's right. Yeah. Chris Liss always used to rail against the accumulators, the innings eaters on pitching, and the Nick Markakises of the world on offense, on hitting, because some year they're not going to get the volume, and then what do you have? Or the volume or the quality tapers off. And by the way, volume of a bad quantity is way more damaging too. If you got a low batting average, a high ERA, lots of innings of up there, man, it's a multiplier effect both ways. So yeah, I feel like I'm trying to do better. I still think there's value in getting those innings, like getting one or two of those guys, like me getting Tyon. And maybe you want to put Merrill Kelly in that category. I don't. I think Kelly's better than that. But
me too.
But the point is, though, like I want to have some stability that I know I'm getting a job. I don't want to have to replace 5 spots on my roster. I want to replace 2 spots on my roster.
That's it. I don't want to just draft Snell and then I don't know, like off DeGrom and like just a total. Remember Mike Podhorzer one year? He did that in labor. He just drafted like the most boomer bust team you could possibly draft. I remember Adalberto Mondesi was on it and stuff, and it didn't work out well. Like I don't want to do that totally, but yeah, I just want to be wary of it.
Yeah. All right. You mentioned that you want to downgrade your SGP value in stolen bases this year.
Yeah, so I did that artificially because, and we talked about this a little bit, I'm finding the same as you. I've been light on power in recent years, and then I can't find it on waivers, or to find it on waivers, I have to sacrifice so much batting average. And I'm finding that during the season, I'm finding steals on waivers, but then I don't need them. Or they can help a little bit, but I'm really looking for power. So on my labor team, like we talked about, I made a point of getting enough, making sure I got a couple real like power hitters like Kyle Schwarber. Like I said, Isak Paredes all of his value is tied up in power. And then some other guys who contribute power. I'm not trying to win steals at the draft, even if that stops me from winning some sort of like draft day RotoWire software who's projected to finish first. Like I'm kind of okay with that. In Tout Wars, I mentioned in our notes that I took Mac Muncy. Now this is OBP, so they're not going to, if you hear this, you're going to be like, Fred, your batting average, but it's OBP. So I took Max Muncy, I took Cal Raleigh, I took Kyle Schwarber, I took Will Smith, who's not a huge power hitter, but he is more than most catchers. So like I made sure I locked in the power, and then I'm not, and because like, and we've talked about this too, like the power also translates to homers translate to runs and RBIs. So And if I can get the power in not in a batting average league without having a bad batting average, I'm getting guys who hit for average and power. I'm probably going to get runs and RBIs, and I'll work on the steals. So that's something where, like I said, but to do that, I had to artificially swing my denominator for steals to make them less valuable. We'll see how it plays out this year.
For sure. In a similar vein, you downgraded the value of wins as well. And that kind of is germane to our discussion about accumulators versus high upside guys.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. So, and the wins, so it's the two things, right? So the two reasons I downgraded the value of wins. One is, right, it gets me away from the accumulators, because when I set wins, so actually to set win totals, one of the things I'll often do after I've made my pitcher projections is I'll sort the spreadsheet by wins, and I go through the players to see if the wins make sense in relation to the innings pitched projection, the ERA projection, and the quality of the pitcher's team. Like if I have a pitcher projected for more wins than another pitcher, but I have him at less innings with a worse ERA and his team's no better, then that doesn't make any sense, right? Like I've made a foolish. Now the problem is wins are so fickle that could totally still happen. So that's why I downgraded the value of the wins, because out of all the fantasy stats, and I know we're shooting darts at every stat, but like the wins is the one we're the most just throwing darts at. So I really downgraded. I think I even cut it in half how much wins are worth. Had to do it artificially because wins are actually so valuable in fantasy. Like when you look at your league standings at the end of the year, the wins are so clustered. Like you need a bunch of wins. You're not going to win wins by projecting wins. It's the one category. You can win steals by valuing and projecting steals. You can't do that in wins. You're going to draft all these guys thinking they're going to get you a bunch of wins, and a bunch of them are going to get you 9 wins.
All right. Or at least you're not going to use previous year stats to project previous year's wins to project wins. Interesting comment from Jeffrey Grimm in the chat forum here. He says he uses the Vegas odds for wins for the year. Right. And I get that. Right. I mean, yeah, it follows. Get draft pitchers on good teams. Right. And if you want to use Vegas as a proxy for that to help you get check your own assumptions about a certain team, whether they're going to be good or not. I get it. You want to load up on Dodgers and Mets and Braves and Phillies, and take a look and see, like, maybe there's a sleeper team on there too that may be projected for more wins than you personally had projected for them. And maybe that's a source as well. So that's another way to go about doing that.
Yeah, I've also, along the same lines, I've I really don't project any exciting win totals anymore. Like I think my highest projection every year now is like 16. I mean, like only 2 pitchers beat 16 last year, like Chris Sale and Skubal. Like, and again, like you're going to look back at the start of the year, like we're going to project Chris Sale to lead the majors in wins, like with his durability issues, like, the next group, Jose Barrios, Seth Lugo last year, like Rodon, who was coming into the year as such a question mark. Like, it's just, it's not like you can already tell right now who the likely homer leaders are going to be, and you can have like some accuracy. The wins, you just don't.
I have one pitcher with 15 wins, and a handful with 14.
Okay, so I have Skubal and Zach Wheeler with 16,
and then I have 15.
I have a few guys with like less than 5 guys with 15, and I probably only have about 5 guys with 14, and then just a massive clump with 11, 12, or 13.
I'm going to do a little thought experiment, but it's not really an experiment because I do believe it to be true. I think Wheeler should be in the same range. I want to see what happens when I give Wheeler one more win, and how much does how much does that boost him up my algorithm there?
Right.
But that's one of those things. Blake Snell, I have at 13 wins. But then what it does is it's good at kind of pointing out like, oh, maybe I have Jose Barrios over projected for wins because I don't think his team's very good. So that's one thing. He probably shouldn't get 14 wins. His team's not that good. Wins aren't that carryoverable from year to year. So even though he may have done it in the last couple of years, it doesn't mean he has a special skill in getting wins versus others. It's not like he's extra durable or something like that.
Right. Yep.
12 wins it is. There you go, Fred. Yep. We're doing, and lowered Chris. You have to lower Chris Bassett doing the same thing, and that's not even artificial though in some cases.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Garrett Crochet is the one who moves the most when we talked about these innings and wins and everything. And you took him in labor. Like I have him ranked really high as my SP4 right now. I don't have him in any drafts, which is remarkable. I just haven't drafted in the right range to get him. But like he's a guy, like if you just sit there and you're like, oh, I don't know if he's durable, I'm just going to put him at 150 innings. He falls all the way down to like a low end ace. And then if you're like, you know what, I think he can do this. He wasn't hurt last year. The White Sox held him back. Like let's do this. 165 innings. All of a sudden he's your SP4.
Yep.
So,
and this is from your article, which you can read on,
right.
on Yahoo. I'll post the link in the forum for those who are streaming live with us there, that, you know, he's being selected as the SP8, but you know, you have him higher than that, and you would have taken him if I hadn't in labor.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I want to get some shares of him. Every draft so far, I've picked like in that 9-10 range, and then I don't take him in round 2 and he's gone when I pick in round 3.
Yep. I'm ride or die with Blake Snell for a lot of the reasons we spoke of. I think he's going to get a lot of, I think he's going to get a lot of wins with the Dodgers. I think he's in camp on time. You know, I think it's not like, I know he hasn't been super healthy over his career, but I also don't think he's a ticking time bomb either. Yeah, I think he's a little bit safer than people might have a perception of him. I've taken Snell in the 3rd round before, and will do so again probably at times. So Blake Snell will be on a lot of my teams this year. Already is on a lot of my teams this year. Let's talk about a couple more guys here that are in your article. But first, before we do that, actually, there's 2 things. One, we're on the Blue Wire Network. Thank you for that. Those are the Blue Wire Network ads. 2, though, you also said that your closers are much shallower for you than they are for than you expected.
Yeah, I think it was because there was, like you had already mentioned, like very little closer turnover last year. Mm-hmm. So because there was very little closer turnover, I was like, okay, so we got like a safe set of closers, right? Yeah. It would make sense if there wasn't much turnover. But when I went back and looked at it, there actually was a lot of turnover last year. It was just all late. So it was just, and I remember you and Scott talking about this maybe in July, like through July, there just hadn't been a lot of closers available on the waiver wire. So, but then some of them popped up later in the season. It's remarkable how fast closers like disappear. Like if we're in a 15-team league, like for everybody to get one closer that they feel really good about, like right around 14, 15, I have Trevor McGill. I know you and Scott just did closers kind of to death last night, but Trevor McGill, like, do I feel good about him as my number 1 closer? Not really. Robert Suarez, kind of, not really. So, right. And then quickly we hit into the next group. That takes me to 15 on my list. And then quickly we hit into the next group. I got Ryan Presley, who I don't think you really like. I got David Bednar, who doesn't have a closer's job. Nope. I got Alexis Diaz, who nobody wants this year. It just keeps going from there. Jordan Romano, who's had one nice spring outing, so now we're back in. But
no, I'm not.
I'm not out on him. Like I'm not out, but I'm not in. Okay. Kenley Jansen, who's like 37 years old and is on a crummy team and could easily be traded at the deadline and not be a closer anymore. Kyle Finnegan, who was out of work until like a week ago. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's actually not is any better of a group. And then we've got a bunch of battles like the Diamondbacks and things like that. So the Royals, where we're not really sure exactly how that's going to shake out. So yeah, there's a lot of the Red Sox, the Rangers. Like I said, you guys talked a lot about them, but the closer group's not great. So I'm actually finding, and you mentioned this with Scott, and I'm with you on this. Like I do want to get one of my top 10 or so closers. And if I got to pay Jeff Hoffman in round 7 to make it happen, totally fine with that. I've taken Devin Williams in round 4 in a couple of drafts. Like I'm fine with it. Some of these guys in round 5, but I think I want one of them. And then sure, if I have to, I probably should have been less stubborn in our labor draft and just played around with a Kenley Jansen or someone. But if that's kind of what you have to do, unless you're going to spend 2 picks in the first 7 rounds.
Right. And like I spent a 10th round. And I spent a 10th rounder on Tanner Scott as my second closer.
I thought that was fine. Totally fine. Yeah.
But that's also why I waited on SP3, because I got an early second closer in a closed league. So that's one of the reasons I went that route. I think it'll be easier to find starting pitchers on the waiver wire than it will be to find closers on the waiver wire, for instance, in our format, in our specific league format there. We'll see if I'm right about that one there. But I'll try to go a little bit of volume on that and hope I just have to roster these 2 relievers all season. We'll see about that. We're going to finish on a hater note here from your article. Tell us, Fred, why do you hate Marcus Semien and Ketel Marte?
So Marcus Semien, I can hear Scott Pianowski swearing at me through Actually, I never heard Scott swear, but I can hear Scott Pianowski grumbling.
No comment.
For all the way from his house, but right now, but if he hears this, but so you mentioned this when you were talking about accumulators, and it's the Nick Markakis syndrome. So Marcus Semion's a better Nick than Nick Markakis, but although Nick Markakis
currently
actually,
peak Nick Markakis was an accumulator.
Peak Nick Markakis was really early in his career. He actually had he's remarkable. He only had 220 homer seasons. But both those he hit 300 and they were really early in his career. But anyways, Nick Markakis played in like 155, 160 games like every year. And through that he accumulated. But the problem is when you're projecting, and this is Marcus Semien right now. The problem is when you're projecting Marcus Semien. So am I going to really project a 34-year-old Marcus Semien to have another year, a 5th year in a row of like 160 games? Like, okay, so let's say I'm not going to do that. If someone's listening and they're like, yes, you do that. Okay, you go ahead and do that. But guys are healthy until they're not. Like I don't really project anyone to play in 160 games. And the thing about Marcus Semien then when you look at his totals is he needed 160 games to get these totals. So if I'm going to project him for just like 150 games, which is still reasonable as like a full-time, that's about as high as I go with anyone. So 150 games, so then I got to ding him a little bit off what he's been doing the last few years. And then when you start dinging him, like he doesn't really hit for average, career 255. Last year he hit 237. Not a big base stealer anymore. Like he did that quick steal surge when he first joined Texas. He got 25 the first year, but that was the year he hit really poorly out of the gate and he stole bases like crazy. And I think he was just trying to do anything to contribute to the team. And then after he started hitting, that slowed down. And then the next year, 14, last year, 8. So this guy's like a 10 steal guy. The homers, the 3 years with Texas, 26, 29, 23. And again, that's with heavy workload. So I'm probably projecting like low 20s. He starts to not come out as high in my rankings as where he gets drafted. Like if we're looking at like 22 homers, 10 steals, a 250, 45, something like that average. The 100 runs becomes more maybe like 90 runs, 94 runs. It's still good, but not quite as good. I don't know. I just don't have him as high as ADP. I haven't had him as high as ADP the last couple of years, and it's because I'm unwilling to project him for 160 games played.
Yeah, I get it. I have him projected for 145 this year.
I think that's fair. Yeah. Like I said, and if you do that and you just take something like last year's stats and then take off like 15 games, they don't look very good anymore.
Yeah.
And now I could say he underachieved a bit last year. So I could even just use last year's stats, 15 less games, but let's say he gets last year's stats. Again, it's not that great. He had a 699 OPS last year. Like he wasn't a very good player.
Yeah. I agree. So. I agree. And, at an age where more decline is just as possible as a bounce back too.
Yeah. As a player, I'm crazy respect for Marcus Semien. Like he's someone who really worked to improve himself as a player. The durability's been really impressive. But we've seen, like you said, Markakis, Hunter Pence, the famous consecutive game streak until all of a sudden it wasn't. I remember Matt Kemp had a nice one. Matt Kemp had a nice streak going for a few years, and then all of a sudden he couldn't stay healthy. Like it just never lasts forever.
And just the performance level could decline too.
Yep.
And the Rangers lineup is loaded.
Yep.
But if he's declining, maybe he'll play, but maybe they'll bat him lower in the lineup at some point in time, unless he's really crushing it. I mean, because they have better bats. They don't have to bat him higher in the order. They could move him down.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
All right. We're going to end on that note there. But check out, I posted the link in the live stream there to Fred's article. Make sure to check that out and check out all of Fred's work. You can follow him on Twitter and you can get links to it that way too. At Fred Zinkie MLB. You can read all his Yahoo articles there. Of course, read everything we have at RotoWire, rotowire.com/try. Gives you a free peek behind the paywall for 2 days. Hopefully you like it and you want to subscribe after that. There's no credit card required though. So don't worry. You're not going to get stuck on a subscription you don't want. You have to affirmatively subscribe to us there. That's the way we've been doing business for over 20 years. So hopefully you keep going that route there. Everybody, thanks for tuning in today. Really do appreciate it there. We'll be back at you again next Tuesday, back on our regular day. But otherwise, make sure to tune in on Wednesday for James Anderson and catch us on SiriusXM Fantasy and all of the other places that we are overly exposed by. So happy to do that there. Thanks everybody for listening. Take care.